So we'll start back in with Tom Fishburne. Okay, so if you can't beat the competition, your market share is going downhill fast. You can copy them, but not as well and later to market. That sounds a little bit like a Dilbert commercial, right? Or a Dilbert cartoon. And so Gary Rogers at Dreyer said, don't obsess too much about worm races. He said, worm races are like competitive market share over time or Nielsen ratings or something like that. You might miss the big picture. Okay. And we often thought about our brands. What we often thought was that it came from Nielsen categories instead of actual customer insights. So we thought of ourselves at Haagen-Dazs. Fishburne worked as I was a Haagen-Dazs brand manager. Okay, and he thought of himself as this super ice cream category. But really, consumers thought of him as, or thought of Haagen-Dazs as a dessert. You know, and if you compare fresh apple pie or a fancy creme brulee at a fancy restaurant, which might cost you $25 or $50 or something, Haagen-Dazs is a good deal. So competitor myopia can lead to copycat products on a sea of sameness in the market, and ultimately it's a race to the bottom. I like how Tara Nicole Nelson suggested in a Harvard Business Review article that we redefine our competitors as our customers' obstacles. Your competition is every obstacle your customer encounter along their journey to solve the human, high-level problems your company exists to solve. So you're solving problems for people, right? And one of the things I've enjoyed my whole career is walking into somebody's business saying, what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest problem that you're trying to solve? And we've had enormous fun and made enormous amounts of money just helping companies focus on what their focus should be. Sounds crazy? Often we find completely hidden assets. Often we just ask a few questions that trigger some new innovation. Okay. Or Jeff Bezos famously put it, if we can keep our competitors focused on us while we focus on the customer, ultimately we turn out all right. And here's some great cartoons. We should differentiate our brand as long as we differentiate it in the same exact way as all of our competitors. Sales are up. Sales are down. Marketing must be working. We need to cut spending. We're going to Canes. We need a new agency. We may beat plan. There goes our bonus. Our message is resonating. Maybe it's time for a rebrand. And that seems to be, that's kind of the way it is. Okay. I like this one probably the best. We've repeatedly squashed this idea for almost 10 years, but now that our competitor is launching it, let's drop everything else and ship in July. Right. Maybe it's the best penalty for your competitor. You know, and we used to do competitive analysis. I mean, I have a whole system of competitive analysis, analyzing their pricing and their spend and all this, and their space per percentage per customer category. But you know, the first catalog I ever worked on, we had figured out the amount of space per category. What we didn't take into account, or what my boss didn't take into account, was that the competitor had about a 300-page catalog, and we had about a 48-page catalog, just because we're just starting out and just trying stuff. And so when you take a 4 or an 8-page spread in a 300-page catalog and work out the percentage, and now you're going to put it in a 48-page catalog, it might only be a quarter page. And we were trying to sell stuff like media safes. And back in those days, that was your big security thing. And there were a lot of options, what kind of trays you had and what kind of media you could put in it and all this. And you really couldn't tell the story in less than a page. And I tried to explain it to him. Didn't get it, and it didn't sell either. And last week or the week before, I showed an example of how I had to redesign the pages to make more sense. The other thing that we did was we allocated our initial starting inventory for products that we didn't really sell. And they told me to, take all the SKUs and divide it and divide the inventory by those SKUs and divide the inventory allocation by those SKUs. Well, I pointed out that what we would have then in, say, we had, what were they called in those days? Report binders, I guess. They took the the multi-hole 3-bar or green bar paper, and they would put them into these big binders, and that's how we analyzed our marketing. And there were lots of different sizes and colors and all that. And I said, now if we spend this, let's say it was $50,000 on report cover binders, I said, and we allocate it evenly, we will have not enough. There's 10 in a box. We won't have enough to buy to ship one box of these binders, which are the minimum we're selling. So you have a completely useless inventory. Well, that got through, and we finally redesigned it. So be careful how you interpret what your competitors are doing, and don't always assume they know what they're talking about. Okay, here's something great from Andrew Ettinger. As business owners, at all times we should run our business as if we're in a recession. And my father, I didn't think much of his business when he was doing it, because what kid ever does? But we still run it today. And one of the things he was very proud of was that it would work even in a recession. He had lived through the Depression, and he was old enough to realize that they were doing better because his dad was a school teacher and his dad was building homes, lake homes. He was doing better than most or a lot of other kids. And so Ettinger says there are 4 classifications of customers. You have cautious customer, comfortable customer, well-off customer, and the customer who just blows money. I'm working with a high-end retailer down in Chicago. And, to me, that's kind of what their market is, that last one. And Andrew says, if you're the top tier, don't cheapen your offer. And so we're trying to get them started in mail, and we're trying to work out how we generate a response, but don't cheapen the offer. And that's a good puzzle. Which brings us to the third article, which is a humdinger. Okay? Before we go, people want to do business with their top tier companies. And at this period of time, so they want to do business with the business leader. Sometimes that's the way you stay. Don't go down to their level. Have a great day. Like and share. See you in Namoa tomorrow. And be sure to share.